Right. Okay, got the shows a red light on my screen. Anyway, good morning, everybody, and welcome to the another team view via the LAF meeting via the team view. Welcome to the digital meeting of the Local Access Forum being held by Microsoft Teams on Friday, 4th of March at 10 o'clock. Just to confirm that this meeting will be recorded and made available to view via the Council's website, except for discussions involving confidential or exempt items. Therefore, the images and audio of those individuals present and/or speaking will be publicly available to all via the recording on the Council's website at www.caerphilly.gov.uk. If members lose connection during the meeting, please make every effort to attempt to reconnect. However, the meeting will continue as long as it remains quo-rate. Committee services staff are available and will be able to assist you to reconnect if necessary. Can I remind members to please mute their microphones, but to leave their cameras on? Can I ask, please, that officers have their microphones and cameras turned off until they are invited to present their reports or speak on an item. Members and officers should only activate their microphone after the chair has invited them to speak on an item. Today, we'll be using hands up for voting on agenda items. Right, I'm sorry about the voice. So, moving onwards, first item on the agenda. Don't think I've missed anything out. It's okay, Phil?
Yeah, that's fine. His apologies is first, Chair.
Yeah, so the first item on the agenda is to receive apologies for absence. I believe there are some.
That's correct, Chair. We received 3, potentially 4 apologies. Firstly, Andrew Edwards, David Hale, and Alison Palmer. And Mike Poynton is not sure if he's going to be making it. If he does come, he's going to be coming in late, Chair.
Okay, thank you very much indeed. Could I just
tell you that also Ali Evans has got connection issues. She just emailed. She is going to keep trying to attend. Okay.
Thank you very much indeed. I'm sorry. Could I could committee? Is it Joe in committee services? Perhaps you'd like to take a list of those who are attending.
Yes. Okay. So I'll do a roll call now. So
okay.
Councilor Nigel George. Present.
Yeah, present.
Yeah, okay. Michael Benjamin.
Yeah, present.
Barry Clark.
Aye, present.
Glyn Davis. Keith Donovan.
Present.
Elaine Gwynn. Lorraine Howells. David Llewellyn.
Present.
Jim Morgan.
Present.
Ruth Stone.
Present.
Maggie Thomas.
Present.
Nigel Yates.
Present.
Walter Williams. I think Walter's frozen a little bit. I can see him though.
I'll confirm I can see him.
Yeah. Dr. Alex Wilson.
Present.
Yeah. Sarah Tyndall.
Barry Clark, you have as a guest.
Gemini Drinkwater.
Present.
Bob Campbell.
Present.
Catherine Della. Phil Griffiths.
Present.
Lee Fleming.
Present.
Stefan Dibry.
Present.
And that's it. That's all, Chair.
Okay, thank you very much. Thank you for that. The second item on the agenda, I don't know if I'll last through to the last item. Second item is declarations of interest. Obviously, that's we're all aware of that. So item number 3 on the minutes is the minutes of the local access forum held on the 26th of November 21. Turning to those minutes, I'm sure you all got a copy there. Just reading through it, page 1, page 2, page 3, and page 4, page 5, page 6, page 7, page 8, page 9, and page 10. Have I missed one out? Page 10, and that concludes it. So is it members present accept that as a true record of the minutes of the 26th of November? Perhaps we could have a show of hands. We're all in, oh, sorry. Yeah, all in favour.
Chair, could we just ask for a mover and a seconder first, please, just so we can note it in the minutes?
Oh, sorry, yeah.
Thank you very much.
Yeah.
Can I move Nigel Yates?
You're
I
moving.
second.
Right.
I second.
Thank you indeed for that. Sorry about that. Yeah, so that's accepted. That's a true record of the of our meeting. Right. That's so I think I've got that right. Item number 4.
Sorry, Chair. Sorry, if we can put our hands up again, just so I can confirm how many.
Oh, sorry. Yeah,
For.
I think it's Barry Clark, is it? And
Yeah, Barry seems to be voting in favour, Chair.
oh, hang on, I've forgotten this little hand. Yeah, where is he? Oh, yeah, I got to raise my hand, isn't it? That's we okay there?
Yes, Chair, that's 7 confirmed.
Okay, thanks for that. Thank you for your guidance there. Right, item number 4 on the agenda is matters arising from the minutes. Is there anything to report there, Phil?
Yeah, there's several items on here, Chair. Firstly, on page 2, we were requested to have a presentation from the Parks Department on maintenance. I have spoken to them, and they will do a presentation, but they've asked that we put it onto the June agenda. There, you know, with the start of the financial year and the storms and things have gone on, they're a bit pushed at the moment, in fairness to them. So I agreed with them that they could come to the June meeting, Chair.
Okay, thank you indeed.
Also on page 2 is we had the election of the Vice Chair, Councilor Nigel George. So just to introduce Nigel George, I know he's present and he has held this role previously. So I don't know if you want to welcome Councilor George, Chair, but he is here with us.
Yeah, welcome to the laugh, Councillor George. It's becoming a familiar face on our screens. Welcome, and we look forward to your help and guidance.
Thank you.
The next item I picked up is on page 10, and it's relating to our next meeting on the 10th of June, the next LAF meeting. It's our intention, if possible, to combine that meeting with our site, our annual site inspection of what we're going to look at, which I think we're minded to go towards looking at level crossings, but we'll see about that. However, the council still hasn't come to a firm conclusion. It's still something in the state of flux as to arrangements for site meetings and the like. There's an anticipated announcement from Welsh Government on the 28th of March, I believe it is, which is likely to restrict, lift all restrictions which are currently in place. But until we have some sort of confirmation of what the position is, we're keeping that site visit just in pencil for the June meeting. It is our intention, everything being good to go, shall we say, that we will run on the 10th of June. However, if there are still complications over that, we may have to defer it again till the September meeting. But it is in pencil for the 10th of June.
So the site meeting could be on a team view again.
We'll defer that until the September meeting. I don't think we necessarily have a photo shoot. I think it's quite important that we go out and actually visit these things in the flesh or in the soil, whichever way you want to look at it from that point of view.
I just hope we have some of today's weather, not yesterday's.
True. And the other thing on the minutes was page 11, was about the continuation of virtual meetings. I've got that on the agenda as item 15, Chair. So I'll cover that then if you don't mind.
No, that's all. No problem. Okay. Moving onwards, item number 5, the Chair's report.
Shall I take this for you, Chair?
I personally have got nothing to report on, but perhaps I think Phil and I have 1 or 2 things to say.
Yeah, so it was a report really on the chairs meeting of the LAFS, the national chairs meeting, which took place on the 1st of December. It was a bit of a, I don't know, so connectivity was something of an issue with that meeting. But there were basically 5 things on the agenda for that meeting. There was the sustainable farming scheme, which was quite sort of interesting in its own right. There was the access reform programme, which I've reported on to you previously, something about the LAF regulations, illegal off-roading in Snowdonia, and something on the combination of LAFs up in North East Wales. So I won't really sort of labour at all of the last points, but in terms of the sustainable farming scheme, which I think is interesting from not just the access point of view, but I think as general sort of part of life, it was quite interesting of what's going on that, about how grants and the like are going to be paid to our farming community in the future. I think that the critical message that the guy called Phil Roberts, who works for Welsh Government, he did the presentation. He works for the sort of land management, so farming division, effectively down Welsh Government, was that what they're looking to do is basically bring in more sustainable management of land. It's going to be becoming more of a priority for Welsh Government. Whilst food and sort of the food supply is still going to remain the priority, they're going to be looking at sustainable land management as a condition of the grant payments that they're likely to be giving. Now, there are 10 primary focuses of foci that they've got in terms of sustainable of this SLM, sustainable land management, which includes things such as protecting the landscape, protecting our ecosystems to make them more resilient, clean supply of water, clean supply of air, carbon offsetting, access and engagement. I'm sorry, I can't remember the others off the top of my head. There are a couple of others in there, but they're all sort of general sort of, should we say, benefits to humankind, really, as well as farming. Although the priority does remain that we do have to have sustainable food production within this country. So there were 10 areas that farmers can bid into as part of their, when the system comes live, that the farmers can be bidding into to supplement their payments, really. I guess from our point of view, it's the enhanced access which kind of primarily drives the LAF, and there were four elements to this. It was about upgrading existing footpaths into multi-use routes, enhancing existing paths to make them more usable, providing sort of joined up, providing connectivity between existing paths and filling missing links, and also the opportunity to perhaps create new rights of way. all of this will be set within the context of a sort of local and national priorities set by Welsh Government, but there will be involvement from local access forums in terms of determining that. They weren't too clear as to what the role of the LAF will be, but we're certainly on the agenda. The sort of timetable that they're looking to do this is that they're going to be bringing out a draft of the guidance this year and probably pilot a couple of projects. We haven't been approached, to the best of my knowledge, in Caerphilly for any pilots. I don't actually know if they've got as far as identifying pilots yet. And then next year, 2023, riding on the back of the revised Agriculture Wales Act, which is coming out, they'll do a final consultation on the sustainable farming scheme, which is based on, with an aim of introducing it in 2025. So there could be all change in the way that our countryside is managed, and I have to say, that I think there's a direction of travel that I particularly like. It's certainly more environmentally focused, which was good news. The other agenda items, well, I've given previous updates on the sort of access reforms going on. They were talking about the Group 1. As you remember, there are three groups. Group 1, which was really about how to improve the role and administration of LAFs, dogs on leads, and opening up the countryside access mapping review effectively. So that's really sort of the sort of feedback from the chairs meeting. I think these items are going to be discussed in more detail at the National Access Forum, which takes place on the 15th of this month. So hope Mike and I at least will be able to attend that one and come back with a report on how these things are developing further from that. So that was the Sustainable Farming Scheme, Chair.
Okay, thank you very much indeed for that input, Phil. Number 6, the Gwent.
Chair, I think we got a hand up.
Oh, sorry.
At least one. I can see one hand up.
Where's the hand?
It's disappeared. Perhaps it was a residual hand. I'm not sure. Okay, sorry.
Okay, thanks.
Sorry, I was muted. I did have my hand up. It's what you said about making the rights of way available to multi-users. Is there going to be discussion on this about, because some footpaths are not suitable for sharing. So was anything said about that, Phil? About discussion on sharing paths?
Not as I say, I didn't manage to attend the whole of the meeting on that, with connectivity issues and the like. My understanding, this is kind of running twin track. We have the access reform group going ahead, of which they are looking specifically at this issue of multi-use of paths. So it is being analysed from that point of view. We presented the suite of things that they were looking at to this LAF, I guess a couple of years ago now, when they were seeking our views, and they've said that they will come back and hold further consultation. And my understanding from what they're saying on the sustainable farming scheme is that there's further consultation to come from that. But what I would say is that the direction of travel, to use that term, is that they're keen on opening up existing access routes for multiple users. However, there is an increasing recognition that there are problems in some cases. So rather than there being a carte blanche on all access being opened up, I think it's going to be a lot more limited when it comes to the actual point of no return. But there will be more consultation on the sustainable farming scheme side.
Okay, that any other points from there? Is that concludes it? And we'll move on to item number 6, the Gwent. Oh, my voice. Gwent Green Grid.
I'll take that one as well, Chair.
Thanks, Phil.
The Gwent Green Grid Partnership, as I've reported before, is the 5 local authorities of the the former Gwent County, working together in collaboration on various environmental schemes and indeed access schemes. So I'm going to kind of concentrate my report here on the access element of that, but it is part of a much wider package. And indeed is part of a package through the Public Service Board, which again I will have mentioned, if not in detail and in passing, that the Public Service Board for Caerphilly is being widened out, or the Public Service Boards for each of the 5 authorities that were in Gwent have been widened out into a regional Gwent-based Public Service Board that includes, organisations such as the Health Board, and the Police, Fire Brigade, and the like, and that. So there is a regional context within which this is taking place, and within which way we try to get our support and funding coming through. But in relation to the Gwent Green Grid and the specifics on access. The whole project team that's been put together primarily in Monmouth is now almost in place. There are 1 or 2 posts missing from it. Most of these posts are based in Monmouthshire, as I say, but access is actually based within Torvine, within Torvine Council, although the strategic management of it is the officer doing that is based in Monmouthshire. Don't think that really is that meaningful, shall I say, because it's a whole Gwent initiative, so everyone should be getting their fair share of the case, irrespective of where officers are based. But within access itself, there have been 5 officers appointed to promote and undertake access improvements. There's a lead officer, a guy called James Bauer, has been appointed. Some of you may know him from a previous existence that he had. And then we've got 4 trainees underneath that who were, I reported the last meeting, they had been appointed. Well, that's been kind of the working operations has been firmed up since that meeting, and we've got 1 trainee based with Caerphilly, which I'm very pleased that we managed to bag a full-time post on that, and at least 1 of the 4 trainees are from Caerphilly as well, so I was quite pleased about that for our sort of local job creation perspective. So our officer based in Caerphilly is with Mark Gibbons, and he's working exclusively on rights of way maintenance. We're still working up the arrangements for how, I do, and the other partners do want this sort of group to get together, the trainees to get together and be a roving team that can go around and hit particular problems that we don't have the manpower to deal with across the county borough, across the Gwent region. That hasn't been worked up at the moment, so as it stands, they're just each individual. We have an individual working in Caerphilly. We're also working up the training elements to basically promote their chances of long-term employment, and it would be the aim, as it is with the apprentices that Caerphilly take on, that we do actually try to find these people's jobs at the end of their training. No guarantee, but that is certainly the intention on that. We also have then, officers aside, we also have a brief out for employing consultants to basically work up regional access improvements. Now that comes in 2 forms. There's firstly the sort of identifying the strategic links, should we say, the long distance walks, long distance cycle, or the cycle path, how we can make more of the existing routes we have within the region for promotion of a number of things. So that's quite closely tied to active travel as well as recreation. But they're also going to be looking at the rights of way improvement plan, creating a regional rights of way improvement plan. So as I've reported previously, the intention for Caerphilly and Blaenau Gwent, and I'm not quite sure which other is going to go down this route, but Caerphilly's route is that we're going to be having a sort of regional context to the rights of way improvement plan, and then there's specific items underneath that for Caerphilly. So that's how we're driving the ROIP forward. I know there was a question came in from the ROIP previously, so that's where we are on that. Once we have the consultants in place, that we'll be taking it forward that way. That's out for appointment at the moment. The other perhaps key point that coming through from this is that regional work in requires sort of regional frameworks, and we as a group have previously talked about, and there's been a sort of desire to know what's been going on in the adjacent authorities. So what we're putting forward here is probably once a year is to have a regional laugh where our 5 laughs get together. Well, it's not 5 laughs, it's actually 4 laughs, because Blaenau Gwent and Torfaen are jointly working, although I don't think they're operating at the moment, and this being used by them as something of as a touch paper to get that going again, is whereby we have a regional laugh where you can all get together, or representatives from each laugh at least can get together to talk about the issues which are going on in the county boroughs, learn from good practice from other authorities and vis-a-vis, but also be able to guide the consultancy in which way they want to take that forward in terms of the regional element of their OIP. So they're going to be setting that initial meeting of a regional laugh up first. Obviously, because there's 5 authorities involved, numbers are going to have to be limited. So effectively, where we're thinking is going to be about 3 or 4 members from each local access forum, can attend this. So the buck is sort of passed across to you to sort of come up with 3 or 4 of you who may want to go to this first regional laugh meeting and represent Caerphilly and perhaps learn from that. So that's going to be coming out shortly, but I could perhaps, Chair, do with a feel at this moment in time as who may want to go to that. It's likely to be a one-off, well, initially a one-off half-day session as I see it turning up.
Okay. Is there any hands up who'd like to have half a day meeting other LAF members?
I see 1 brave soul, either that or it's a question. 2 brave souls.
Looking for a third.
Ruth. I tell you what, Chair. What may be better actually thinking it through is if people just sort of send me or yourself an email expressing an interest to do this. This isn't set in tablets of stone. Like you can change your mind on this, but that was the discussions that we had, that we get 3 or 4 members from each LAF. We'd invite 3 or 4 members from each LAF to attend in the first instance.
But at the moment, it's an unknown date at an unknown location.
Yes, exactly. But my concern with it is that all of a sudden, if it suddenly rockets, then we might have something coming, potentially before our next LAF meeting in June. I think it's probably unlikely, but it might happen. So I'm just kind of covering the base on that one.
Okay. Thanks for that, Phil. It's there's a lot going on even outside of our own, the other side of our fence. Number 7.
Chair, I think we've got a hand up. I'm not sure if it's a legacy hand, a question, or a vote to go on the regional LAF. I'm not quite sure.
I wanted to ask a question. I wasn't volunteering. When you said the long distance routes, and then you sort of quickly said cycle routes. When these consultants are looking at long routes, are they only going to be looking at long distance cycle routes?
No, certainly not. The cycle routes is almost. I don't think they can look at our access without looking at cycle routes. But from sort of my focus, and I guess feeling the water from the other, it's going to be primarily about the sort of the existing rights of way network. But I don't think you can look at those. I think you have to look at the whole access, sort of portfolio.
Okay, thanks, Phil. Any other hands? No. Okay. Item number 7, general rights of way update. Is it Phil?
This is Andy Fleming, Chair, I believe.
Andy's going to speak on that.
I was just
welcome, Andy.
Welcome everybody. It's Andy Fleming, rights of way officer for Caerphilly Borough Council. Slow start to the year due to the COVID and the bad weather we've had. There's a few issues we've got with bridges, flooding, etc. We're well behind on that work, unfortunately, because during the COVID crisis, we couldn't get in there or get contractors in there to actually fix the problems. So the warden and his team can do certain things, but there are things he can't do. So we're a bit behind in that way at the moment. And as we speak, I've got him clearing drainage down in Risca, where there's a very, very important path that's used by people going back for schools, shopping, etc., etc. So the team at the moment are very, very busy. In fact, they've got too much work on, but now we can start using contractors. The only problem is with the contractors is because they haven't been doing work for a while. When some of the restrictions were lifted, all them contractors were fully booked. So I am getting a contractor now and then, but it's a rarity because they still are fully booked by other authorities as well, because the contractors we use are used by other authorities. But we are catching up, although it's slow. We are catching up on some of the projects and some of the works that need to be carried out. I think that's about it. Any questions?
Okay, any hands up? No. Oh, somebody's got their hand up.
Keith Donovan.
I think
Yeah, it's me.
June's got a hand up as well, Chair.
Who's JM?
That's me.
Okay.
Hello.
Yeah, hi there.
Hi. If I may, Chair, could I just ask a few questions about going back to ROIP? Could you just explain, at the moment, there is no revised plan then, is that correct?
Say that again, please.
Sorry, I lost track.
With ROIP, there is no revised plan at the moment.
No, it's going to be a joint plan, apparently.
Do you want me to step in and take that one, Andy?
Yeah, if you would, please.
You're correct, June. We haven't got a in-date ROIP at the moment. However, as I'm sure Keith is about to come in and comment on, the ROIP that was produced, or should we say our current ROIP, for want of a better expression, was so large, included so much material that, you know, frankly, it'll keep us going for several decades in the future. What was included in there, and hence we're having a rationalisation of what's included within that ROIP. So it'll be, as I say, sort of if you can picture this, it'll be in sort of two chapters for so we say we'll have the sort of regional context and the sort of priority set at a regional level. Okay, that's what we'll be working across Gwent. We of course be speaking to our neighbours north, south and east and west as well. But underneath that then will be the sort of guts of the ROIP, will be a sort of integrated action plan. Those projects that we intend to do, you know, specific projects that we intend to do during the period of the ROIP, rather than, should we say, a desire list. You know, if you could think of something, you put it into the ROIP, and we'll get done what we can get done, as is the case at the moment. You know, I think Keith gave some figures previously, what he estimated that it would actually cost to do the ROIP, and it took us about 30 odd years of expenditure on it. So it'll be more tailored and shall I use the word rational? More deliverable, I think, is the word I'm looking at, a more deliverable ROIP.
And what sort of timescale are they looking at to reduce this new revised ROIP?
Well, the funding for the initial tranche of funding for the GGP, for the Gwent Green Grid, runs out in 18 months. But this is one of the sort of earlier projects in there. So, you know, I would anticipate that it'd be certainly less than a year to do this. It's not going to be an ongoing consultancy commission on it.
Right, I see. Going back to the existing ROIP, there's two appendices that I wondered if somebody could send me further information on. One of them is Appendix 7, relating to the circular and linear bridleway route. The map that's in that appendix is very difficult to try and work out where it is. So I wondered if somebody would be kind enough to sort of send me something to show me exactly where that route is.
Do you want a blow up of the a blow up of that map, a more decipherable version? Yeah.
Yes, it's to do with it's the Appendix 7, so I can identify exactly where the circular and linear bridleway in the Manmole area is.
Right, yeah. You okay with that, Andy?
Yeah, I wrote that down, yeah.
Oh, brilliant. And secondly, there's another map there which is about a proposed circular bridleway throughout the county, but it's very difficult to decipher because everything is in green. The background's in green, the route's in green, the roads are in green. So I wonder if somebody could have a look at that for me as well to try and so I can identify on that map exactly where the proposed circular bridleway is.
June, did I have an appendix?
Yes, sorry, that was Appendix 8.
Okay, Bev, no problem.
Thank you. Also, one last question, if I may, Chair, on rights of way. We have a wood in our area, Havergis Cloud Wood, and a route going through it, which is used by walkers and horse riders. At some point, I presume it must have been the council, were good enough to put step overs at the beginning of the route. And also, there's also artwork in there and seats. But it's not on the definitive map. I wonder if someone could tell me find out exactly what the status is, whether it's a permissive path or, like I said, it's not on the definitive map. So just to find out what it is.
Okay.
It links up as well to a bridleway, which actually is overgrown at the moment. The access to the bridleway is overgrown. And at the end of the bridleway, where it meets the Manmole Road, I believe the authority constructed a pen or a corral to make it safe for riders to dismount and then open the gate and get out. So the council has been involved in it in the past. And I just wondered what the situation was with it, who's responsible for, because there's a little bridge, only a tiny little stone bridge. It is literally tiny over the little stream there is gone. And I just wonder what the situation was, if possible, then further on to look to see if we could create a bridleway in there.
Okay. No
Are
problem.
you okay with that, Andy?
Yeah, I got all that down.
Just from recollection, June.
How do you pronounce that wood again, Phil?
Yeah, Havergis Cloud. It's all right. I'll guide you to it and where it is and show you where it is, as long as you can do the background research. My recollection, June, is that it was put in as part of the sort of Upper Sahawi Valley initiative, probably over a dozen years ago now, and it was I believe it's on Natural Resource Wales land, and the case officer at the time sort of had an agreement with NRW over that. So if it's not on the definitive plan, it's not a proper, shall we say, statutory right of way. So it would be down as a sort of permissive path on that one. But I may be wrong. That's my recollection from it.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, thanks, June. Keith, I think have you got a point?
Yes, I take it is the right. So I think this one will be one for you again, Bill. We've been issued, and I think this is relative to the rights of way improvement plan. We've been issued by a list from the Ramblers Association for the amount of money given by the Welsh government to the various authorities in Wales. I think it's for 2021. And for some reason, every authority had been given an amount of money, apart from Caerphilly, who had nothing. So could you enlarge on why that occurred?
In the broad, Keith, I'm going to be quite reserved in my answer on this because we got freedom of information questions and things in on this at the moment. So we were allocated a sum of money, which in short wasn't expended in full. You can chip in here, Andy, because I know this is what you've been dealing with. So the allocation wasn't taken up for a number of reasons, at least not as an entirety. But I don't think I can say anything more than that at the moment on it, Keith.
Why is that, Chris? Yeah.
Well, I'll come in on here. We didn't have the funding until late June 2020. Sorry, late July 2020. And as you can appreciate, that's when COVID and all kicked in. All right, so we had this money and we couldn't do nothing with it. Let me plug my battery in. So we had this funding and we couldn't do nothing with it because we couldn't get contractors in. We couldn't do anything with it. So eventually it ran out because we had to use it up by March. And again, even by March, we were still under constraints as far as contractors were concerned. And then in May of 2021, we did have that funding offer again, and we took it up. It was £74,000, I think it was, something like that. I can give you the exact.
It's in the centre.
And if I can come in here, Chair, if you don't mind, I think you do need to be reserved in what you say here with freedom of information requests coming in on it.
Yeah.
Okay.
Is it just one freedom of information request?
I've had a couple of different people. I have.
Yeah. Well,
yeah.
I mean, I know that someone's threatened freedom of information with you, but if you were able to answer that question today, then I could say that I could squash that anyway. But
well, that was one of my biggest issues. Not issues, sorry. We didn't have it till late July, the same as everybody else, and I couldn't get contractors in, etc., etc. Plus all the other things that was going on as well with the farms and the stopping up of rights of way and farms that I needed to put signs up and everything else. We just couldn't get anybody in to do any of that work, and the warden at the time was very, very busy doing other things within the rights of way field. But yeah, we are putting an answer together for the freedom of information, and yes, you're not the only one that's put in for it, Keith. If you have put in for it.
Well, no, I think you were threatened by it if you're not getting an answer quickly.
Yeah, yeah.
I think that was the case. But if that was the only one, then if you could have answered, which you have really answered, you couldn't do it in the time, so you didn't take the money. That's basically it, isn't it?
That's basically it. Yeah.
Why we have to go through freedom of information for that, I have no idea.
No, and
that's when I start, because somebody who's come from private industry and not authorities like you, that's when I start getting annoyed. From what I can see of it, then you couldn't do the job in the time, therefore you couldn't claim the money. It's simple as that.
That's correct. Yeah, we had to claim the money by a certain date in March. It's the same as this year's March the 15th. And if because we haven't taken out, because we didn't do no work, etc., I couldn't claim for it, and I wouldn't claim for it.
Yeah, well, that's fine. That's a good enough answer. I wouldn't know whether to criticise or applaud on that situation.
Well, but, I put it down to COVID. If I can't get away with that, then I can't get away with it. But again, we had funding this year, and I've certainly used our funding up because I've been able to get hold of the contractors, and I've been able to use my own team to build bridges and to put gates, etc. in. You know what I mean? So it's being spent this year because I could spend it. Last year I couldn't spend it.
Okay, well that's the answer. You see, Phil, I see people like what you've said then now. I mean, we're on the local access forum, and I mean, we have our little problems ourselves within our own organisations, and I wish it had been left to me initially, as far as we were concerned, that I could have brought it up here on the local access forum, only to be told that the freedom of information prevents you telling me. And, and that, to me, that's, I'm going to say you, not you personally, hiding. So I start thinking then when somebody said, like you've answered, the answer is so clear, and then you come along and say, I can't tell you that because of freedom of information.
Keith, in fairness, I was saying, I think I was saying we need to be reserved in what we say, not that we couldn't answer it.
Pardon?
I think I was saying we need to be reserved in what we say at this stage, rather than that we couldn't answer it.
Well, you've answered it, really. As far as I'm happy enough with it, with the answer. I'm not happy that we haven't had the money, but I'm happy enough with the answer.
Okay, then, Keith.
That's right, really all I got to say.
Okay,
Well,
thanks, Keith.
can I just say something else as well? One of the biggest problems we've got is I had a question off a member of the public this week asking me how much are we going to get off Welsh Assembly government this year, and it's the first week in March. All right, the financial year starts in a couple of weeks' time, and we still haven't had that offer.
Well, it's been about 70,000 through the years, hasn't it, each year? Whereas my estimate initially was 300,000 required to do the plan.
Yeah,
so
yeah.
you're struggling anyway.
But don't forget, mine, that was over 10 years ago, that first roll.
That's right, that's right.
So,
Okay,
Okay.
moving on to see June Morgan. You've got a question you wish to raise?
Yes, Chair, thank you. I've been in contact with Jonathan Davis about, as Phil will know, and Andy will certainly know about my concerns about the restricted byway not far from where I live. And Jonathan Davis has informed me that officers have been instructed to repair the path. Any ideas when this is going to happen? As you know, it's been years now and the path has deteriorated significantly. So could you tell me where, do you have a list of priorities? And if so, where this path is?
Do you want me to answer that, Phil?
I don't know the answer, so that's probably yes, better.
Yeah, not a problem. June last week, we had 2 engineers up there last week actually assessing a site. We'd done this about 3 years ago, just before the COVID kicked in. But obviously, as you can appreciate, prices have gone up, etc., etc. So we had to get another engineer in last week to have a look at the site. That engineer had a good look from top to bottom. He went away and obviously he's put in a report together to send back to us to see what needs doing, or the options that need doing up there, and also a price. So I can't give a definitive answer when that report is going to come back and when and if we do start work on it, depending on the price, obviously.
Okay.
So can you come back when you have the report and update me?
Yeah, I certainly will, Beb. I actually spoke to the engineer this morning, and he's still putting that report together.
Okay, thank you.
If I could chip in there as well, Chair. Then we'll have a rep from the maintenance team from the Parks Department, the rights of way maintenance team, presenting to the next fora anyway. So I'll ask them specifically if they haven't got a date or if it's not bottomed out by then to address that specific issue as part of that report.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thanks, Phil. Moving on, item number 8, the countryside code.
I'll take that, Chair.
Okay, thanks.
This is an information item. Basically, advice for landowners, which has come out as part of the countryside code. I was quite surprised when the paperwork came through from this, how far the countryside code actually goes back. I can remember it from my youth, but I was astonished to find that it actually comes from the National Parks and Countryside Act 1949. I had no idea it went back quite that length of time. But what that actually, and again, it was a bit of a learning curve for me on this, when that actually sort of sets out the remit for the rights and obligations of people using the countryside, and it specifically sort of states that there's an obligation for the preparation and publication of a code of conduct and guidance for people visiting the countryside. So it was quite interesting from my perspective to see quite what the history of the countryside code has been. There's been, obviously, since 1949, there's been various reviews that have taken place of the countryside code, but they haven't actually looked at the sort of obligations on the sort of landowners and what it is, the advice to landowners. So the view of Natural Resource Wales and the Natural England, it was a sort of overdue review of this. So those two organisations have been working together to bring a sort of joint publication that covers England and Wales out. As part of this, with this, they have had the health and safety executive involved as part of that as well. to oversee it. So, you know, the countryside code itself, as most of you probably know, so I'm sorry if I'm just saying, you know, about sucking eggs, but it's sort of there's a suite of advice that sort of comes underneath it, or a family as they described it as being. So, you know, we've got advice provided for you know, visitors to the countryside, and that was the last sort of advisory note that had been reviewed. There's also the sort of dog walking code, trail users code, the waterside code, canoeing code, angling code, and wild swimming code. So there are a whole suite of these things there, but they all kind of work on the same ethos, that the three sort of mantras that come out of it are sort of protect, respect, and enjoy. And this is very much the same. So the new advice coming out provides clear information to landowners on effectively 5 sort of elements of countryside access. Firstly, there's the rights and responsibilities relating to public rights of way and areas where the public have access. Secondly, there's the right of access for visitors. So understanding the visitors' rights themselves, obligations to keep rights of way in a usable condition. There's thirdly, how to help visitors behave responsibly whilst on landowners' land, and that refers to, you know, good condition gates, you know, clear and not misleading signage, and those sort of elements. Then the fourth element was, you know, perhaps what they sort of home in on the most, not surprising, is, you know, how to create a safer environment. And that really sort of targets in on elements such as, you know, overhanging trees and responsibilities for tree safety, livestock protection, you know, how and where to use machinery on site where there's public access, the use of firearms on sites, and there's a section in there as well on dangerous substances and how they should be stored and, you know, so basically kept away from the public. It's basically to avoid potential conflicts is what it's all about. And then the final section is, you know, who to get in touch with in terms of any issues, problems they may have, who to contact for help. So, you know, that was basically the latest advice that's come out. We've been asked to share it and make it known that this has been revised. Now, as I say, it's a joint publication between Natural England and Natural Resource Wales. There's only one difference, I think, really between the two sets of advice that come out, and that is in England they cover the coastal margin, which we don't do in Wales, but it's not really applicable for our LAF, obviously. So we've been asked to sort of publicise this to our LAFs and tell them that, you know, and inform you that this is available on the Natural Resource Wales website under the Countryside Code if you want to have a look at it. But that's advice to landowners.
Okay, thanks, Phil. Anybody, any questions? I think it's all basically straightforward. Respect our environment. We've only got one environment which we can to look after, and anyway.
I see Keith's hand up. I think it might be a legacy hand. I'm not sure.
Any? Right. Oh, right. Okay. Hands back in pocket. Right. Okay. Thanks, Phil. Number 9, Natural Resources Wales updates. And is Germany going to speak about that? Is she present?
Hi, yes, yeah. Can you all hear me okay?
Just about. Very faint at this end.
Is it okay now, or?
Unless the microphone is moved nearer to the mouth, I don't know. Yeah. Anyway.
I can take my headset off for a minute then.
I'll start, Gem, if you want. We'll just I'll give a general update, and then Gemini will pick up specifically on her project, if you'd like, Chair, if that's okay.
Yeah, okay, fine. Yeah.
Morning, everybody. Nice to see you all again. For those of you who haven't met me or don't know me, my name is Robert Campbell. I work in the land management team in South East Wales, and our patch covers Caerphilly over to the Wye Valley and then up to Abergavenny. and the team I sit in is directly responsible with managing the Welsh Government woodland estate in those areas, so the forest effectively, but also Newport wetlands and a few other NNR sites, nature reserve sites around. So just a quick update. Apologies earlier, I did a keyboard slip and posted something in the chat, which was just some links that I'm going to come up to. I'll repost them in a minute so you can come copy them out of the chat if you'd like to. A couple of quick updates for your general land management update work. Like everyone else, we're kind of recovering from the recent storms. We've got teams and contractors out looking at either surveying damage or repairing damage or clearing trees and things. And I'd like to thank the several members of the LAF who reported trees down on public rights of way, and we're dealing with those. So thank you very much for that. I will post in the chat again in a minute. We have a team email that you can use that's a generic team email. And the advantage of using that rather than individual emails is that someone will get it. Obviously, if you email me, if I happen to be on leave or in the middle of a forest, I don't get your email until I get online again. Whereas if you use our generic team email, it will definitely get picked up whether anyone's on leave or not. So use that one if you want to report anything or just talk to the team or ask a question. We can do that for you. And then out of hours, we have an incident control centre that's manned 24/7. And I'll post up their details in a minute, and they're on phone or email. And we also have duty land management officers. So use the main system, because what that done, if you report an incident through the NRW main incident line, it creates something that has to be closed out. So somebody has to do something about it. Now, that might be me going, we're going to deal with that on Monday morning because that's just the reality of the situation. Or it might be me calling in contractors in at 12 o'clock on a Saturday night to fix something because it's urgently important that we do it. But it will go through the ICC process initially. I'll put those up in a minute. So yeah, we've just got people out on the ground clearing some messes up. And I think we're kind of fairly up to speed. We've still got work to do, but it's going on okay. A couple of things. We're working fully with the Green Grid partnership, as Phil mentioned earlier on. We haven't quite connected at a low level, but at a strategic higher level, we're committed to working with that. And so what does that mean? We will work wherever we can to allow those routes to be developed on the Welsh Government woodland estate. So if, you know, as long as we can, it makes sense to do it, we will do it. We will definitely not be trying to stop any of those proposals or those key projects from that partnership. As a team, we're currently carrying out some survey work, and we've got contractors doing it, looking at specifically public rights of way within the woodland estates. We're very aware of, and while we don't know where everything is. We don't know where all the gates are. We don't know where all the styles are. There's historic legacy information which isn't up to date. So we're having a snapshot review of that, if you like, with a contractor going out, and they're focusing their efforts predominantly on the infrastructure, so the gates, the stiles, fences, whatever else is there, and then they're going to report that back to us, and we will be liaising with, in your particular area, with Andy's team about how we rectify that, improve that, whether that's, you know, things in the wrong place, the wrong types of things, or things we can do better and improve. So that's ongoing. None of that stuff's going to happen in the next week. You know, this is a long period of work, but at least we're starting to get a really good picture of the things that need changing on the estate, which we know there's many. And Gemini will pick up specifically about Cumcarn in a second when I finish. We're also working quite closely with the Caerphilly landscape project. I don't know how many of you are aware of that. There was a project led by Caerphilly local authority to develop some woodlands around the Caerphilly area in the Caerphilly woods with some routes. And again, because of COVID restrictions, they've fallen foul of some funding deadlines and actually been able to get things done on the ground. So what we're now liaising with them is what can we help achieve using our resources and our funding. So that's ongoing, and by the next meeting, I will definitely have some updates on what those routes are. I think it's available on the council website. I'm not sure. Phil, correct me if I'm wrong, but you can look at the Caerphilly landscape project and the suggested routes in that area, and we will be picking up some of that work and trying to make it work and get some of those routes in with the team. And again, liaising with Andy's team as well within the public rights way within local authority. In terms of forest operations, a couple of updates for you. We've got an imminent start in the Wiley South. So there's a large operation there to remove diseased larch trees. And I'll post these in the chat. And we've got quite a good community liaison now. I don't know if anyone in the LAF is part of that group, but we do have quite a strong community liaison team there that we're liaising with the local community about our priority on the outset is to keep everyone safe. That's our contractors, but also members of the public. That's our utmost priority while the work's going on. But post the operation, we're very keen that everything's reinstated properly, but also that we liaise with the communities about how we could improve access and rights of way and permissive routes in that area. And that's going to be a general concept that looking to do major changes to things like the work that Gemini's going to explain in a minute will initially just follow the harvesting programme because it makes sense, because we have to do that work when we finish doing the forestry operations. That's not to say we won't go and work somewhere else, but it's just if you want to know a plan of what we're going to redevelop next, we'll look at the harvesting programme, and that's kind of where there's a good indication of our programme of work, if you like, apart from the day-to-day stuff. And then the other coup that's about to, it's just gone on e-sales. All these are done electronically on the Welsh Government e-sales, is the Darren over on the far side of Cumcarn. It's not really part of the Cumcarn, but it links into Cumcarn because all of the works has to go through Cumcarn. We have no access rights. We have no ability to get machines in or take the timber out of that area. I can provide you maps with those if I didn't want to just generically fire them out to everyone, but if you specifically want to see the maps, I can give you those. That's gone for sale now. There's an issue on that site with nesting birds, but I think that work will start probably later on in the summer. And that's a Caerphilly operation to take all the trees off because they're diseased and dying or dead. And that site will get replanted again as well. There's some integrated engineering works going on around in various woodlands. So quite often the civil engineers will go in and upgrade roads or access points for the forestry operations. But that work could happen 1 to 2 years before the forestry operations happen. There's quite a long, I know it doesn't feel like it at times, but the process that leads up to this, we currently have a felling programme for 5 years, and that will change depending on what Welsh Government and Natural Resources Wales forestry leaders kind of decide they want to deliver. But we've got a programme set out of what we think we're going to do, and then the civil engineering team will go in and upgrade roads or gates or whatever it is we need off the back of that. And quite often it's things like creating roads because we don't have any access. And so that's why you might find civil engineering work going on, but it isn't specifically the forest actual felling of trees. And I think that's it. The one other thing I would say is we're liaising quite closely with Gwent Police about off-road access, so 4x4s and motorbikes, which is an ongoing and nobody's got the right answer, but we're liaising with them in terms of enforcement and carrying out operations. So some operations imminent in the next few weeks in your area. And we are providing leaflets to people that we meet out on the forest about how you can report those. And I'll post them in the chat. You don't have to ring 101. You can email them, and you can also use social media if you're able to do that. And I will point, I think I said it in the last meeting, just because you report it, don't assume that the police are going to turn up imminently on a 999 call. They probably won't. But what they will do is log it. And what that information does is it gives us intelligence that every Saturday there's a report coming in from that woodland. And so when they are planning their operations, they look at where those reports are coming from. And this is a cluster of reports that give them enough information that every Wednesday night at 5:30, there's some off-roaders in that woodland. They're now obviously going to target that area at that time. So it helps them. It's about intelligence gathering. So whilst you might be wanting a police response imminently now, I have to be honest, that's probably not going to happen. As you can imagine, the police are stretched. They've got other things going on. Obviously, if it's something that's life-threatening and you call 999, they may well respond imminently. But that's it really as an update. I'll cut and paste all that into the chat, just those links and those numbers for you. And then I'll, if anyone's got questions, I can see Councillor Williams has got a question. Just hang on a second. Let me paste all this stuff again for you. There you go. It's in the chat. Yes, Councillor Williams.
Right, thank you, Mr. Campbell. On that, a few years ago, just before COVID, you cut all the diseased larch down in Hollybush.
Yeah.
Have you any plans there to replant?
Probably, but I don't know. I'm not in the forest ops team, but I can have a look and see. There will be quite often. There's two, without getting into lots of detail, and I'm not a forester, but when we take out the larch, which was predominant in South Wales because of its usefulness in the mining industry, there's two options. We either look at it and go, we're going to regenerate that to ancient natural woodland, and what they'll do is leave it for a couple of years to allow the natural seed bed to regenerate itself. So we might get oak trees coming through, or birch trees, or whatever else was there originally. Doesn't always work, because as you can imagine, those larch trees have been there for 30-40 years, and they've been dropping seeds all the time. So the seed bed for the predominant species, the larch, is there. But they might well leave it, or if it's planned as productive forest, then they will go in and replant it, and they'll do ground prep operations to clean up, move the brash, and create areas for the replanting of the spruce predominantly. But we are now planting hardwoods as commercial crops for the Welsh Government. And there are other areas, predominantly steep banks and areas with poor access, where we're going, it just doesn't make sense to do commercial forestry there anymore. And we're just, creating woodlands out of those, and looking at climate change, and looking at, we're mixing up tree species so that if global temperatures continue on their rise, what species will survive nicely in South Wales in 10 or 20 or 30 years. So we're, like I say, I'm not a forestry specialist, but we are working with very specialist scientists about what species of trees we should plant and in what sort of density. In brief, I'll get you I'll look into Hollybush for you, and if there's a replanting map, I'll get back to you with some answers, if that's all right, Councillor Williams.
Okay, thanks so much. Yeah, excellent.
Cool. Lots of hands up. Michael, do you want to go around, because I can't see everyone? Can you kind of just call people up with their questions, and I'll answer them as I can?
Working at the top of the list, my question is, you referred to the chat. How do we gain access to that?
Oh, on the top of your screen, there should be an ability to, if you look, there's some icons right at the top of the screen. It should say show participants, and then it's got conversation, and you can hide or unhide it.
Oh, right. Okay.
And then it's got it should be in between your hands up and your participants.
Oh, right. Yeah. Okay. Show conversation. Yeah.
I can see some hands. So June Morgan, and I'll go on to the other people.
Oh, right. Yeah. I got that. Right. Okay. Thanks. Yeah. I'll take my hand. Oh, lost everybody. Yeah. I'll take my hand down. Working down the list from the top. Maggie Thomas, you've got a brief question for a brief response.
Yeah, you said about consultants going in and commenting on the furniture on the rights of way.
Yeah.
They used to, on one forest barrier just above Cronfenenfach, there used to be a gate. Now I don't know when the gate was taken away and a stile was put in.
Yeah.
But if I send you the details of that, could it be considered that the stile is replaced by a gate?
Yeah, I'm sure, Maggie. I don't know the site, so I can't comment directly on it. But we'll, and just to reiterate, we're doing this survey work predominantly for our own work. We should know where this stuff is, and I have to be honest. There's only 13 of us. We've got 104 forests. I haven't even been to some of them, and I've worked here for 7 years. There's a reality about the resources we've got to do this. So we're trying to get a snapshot of what we've got, and we've prioritised the Caerphilly area because we're working really closely with Andy's team in the rights of way about, we're going to give them the data. We're not replacing the work they do to look at their conditioning surveys. We're doing our own internal audit, but Andy's officers are aware of the work that we're doing, and we will share our findings with them, and we will at some time go through them woodland by woodland with them when they have time, and they'll go, there's something missing there, and we'll replace it. But if you know of specific things, Maggie, I'm quite happy to look at them if you send me a list. And when we get when we get the contractors to survey there, we'll make a point of noting something used to be there and is missing. You know, our aim is to improve it, not to reduce anything. But you know, we have to work in partnership with Andy's team about legally what should be there and then what we can do on top of that. Does that answer your question, Maggie?
Yeah.
Well,
Okay.
thank you.
Phil, you've got a question? I see your hand is up.
Yeah, please, Chair. A couple of questions. But firstly, going back to Walter's question, and for specific to Walter and Rob, I've been in touch with Pete Cloak on this. It's duality. I will be quite open about it, because I haven't caught up with Pete and Fiona since before lockdown. So I wanted to chin wag. So I have gone to Pete to find some information that Walter wanted out on that, but I was very much killing two birds with one stone. So that's kind of in hand anyway, Rob. Okay.
Okay, that's fine.
Sorry, Walter. My camera's not on. My camera's on. Sorry, Walter. I've been meaning to get back to you and tell you what I've been doing on that, but the tsunami's overrun me on that. In terms of a couple of questions, Bob. Really, I had something come through last night about Coed Rupera and some consultation going on that. I'm sorry, I haven't gone through it yet. I think there's some operations due to start down there as well, isn't there? Which is linked in very much with the Caerphilly landscape strategy, as you said, just for info. And the other one was, please don't tell me they're starting on Wiley South next week, and I've got at least a week's grace on this. I say that on the basis that I've got some big community event taking place down on the farm, which is adjacent to it next week. So
I'm liaising with Stefan on that very closely. It's on the imminent start, which means the contract started. So if they want, they can start tomorrow. Well, no,
Right.
They can't, because it's Saturday tomorrow. It's unlikely to start. And just to so the contract start date happens, and it's up to the contractor if they start on that day or not. And what normally happens, and is more often happening now, especially recently, is they haven't finished the other job yet. And unlike your average builder or plumber, they don't just up ship and disappear and go somewhere else. They have to finish that other job because of the storms, because of COVID. A lot of the felling work is behind schedule. And so I know for a fact that contractor hasn't yet finished his other job. I would say it's very unlikely they'll be there next week.
Good. Like I've seen them work,
and I'll get an update. I'll get an update for you and find out. I will get an update later today about that.
It's really for information, preferably, and it seems like they're not going to be there, but we might just need a little bit of extra health and safety there in terms of the whole roads and what's coming and going for that particular. But I think unlikely that my waters are telling me they won't be starting next week either, so it won't be an issue. Thanks.
Fine. And that's it. There are a couple more. I think that Phil's last question. I would like at some stage in the future. It's hard because you meet so infrequently. But if you wanted to, at some stage in the future, I would be more than willing to arrange a visit to either a recently worked site or a site that's currently live, and I'll bring along some forestry specialists, and you can ask all those little technicalities about to do with the forest operations. That are probably buzzing in your head right now, but for a future date, an open invite there. If you'd like to do that, we would need a couple of months to set it up, especially if it was to one that was being worked. But you're going to have, we're going to have some fairly big operations going on in your area, and you're more than welcome. With a bit of organisation, we can take you out on a bit of a visit and show you around and explain what we do and how we do it. So open invite there. And if there's no more questions, I'll hand over to Gemini, who's going to talk to you about her work in specifically in Cwmcarn.
Thanks, Rob.
Thanks, Bob, and for the invite as well, Gemini.
Morning. Hopefully you can hear me okay now.
Okay.
Yeah. So since our last meeting, I've been continuing with the review of the rights of way at Cwmcarn, Abercarn, and I've completed that review, all but one trail, which I'm going to be looking at next week. So that's been really insightful and has enabled me to kind of identify, what issues there are where. And I've been liaising with Stefan at various points and Mark from Torvine Rights of Way as well regarding various issues. I'm now at the point where I'm spraying up the locations for all of the way markers on all of the rights of way which don't require any modification orders. And I just ordered a shed load of way marker posts, and we're going to be issuing that out to contractors to get those posts in the ground. So that's a really great thing, actually, that you know, the rights of way will be way marked. So all of a sudden the network at Cwmcarn and Abercarn will be that much more visible and accessible going forwards. I've also obviously identified a number of routes which have got issues in terms of where trees have fallen across, or where brash and you know, trees from previous harvesting works are currently causing access issues. So again, we're literally just on the brink of issuing you know, contract out to get those routes cleared as well. So going back to what Andrew said, and in fact in NRW we've also had the same problem in terms of contractor availability. So you know, we get our work out as best we can, and get contractors on the ground as and when they are available. But unfortunately, as with Caerphilly, NRW's contractors span right across South Wales in most cases. So it really is kind of, we just got to wait our turn. And you know, obviously where danger and health and safety is, you know, that's priority. But when it's just kind of opening up things and getting posts in the ground, signs and so forth, that's done according to the jobs that the contractors have got on their plate at the time being. So appreciate your patience and you know, and your understanding over the next few months with regards to that. So concurrently with that, I'm working on the kind of modification order applications, and I'm preparing those. But what we wanted to avoid was kind of not getting anything kind of done on the ground while that process is kind of happening as well in parallel. So as I say, you know, we're doing lots of work on the ground, and we'll be doing so over the next few months on routes which don't require modifying. And then obviously once the routes which do require modifying and go through the process of application and approval or rejection, whatever the case may be, you know, we can then progress work where relevant going forward on those. So that's that. And then I'm also working in partnership with Caerphilly with regards to developing some new walking trail panels. As you'll be aware, at Cwmcarn, there really hasn't been any walking trail panels of any description over the last number of years. And what we want to do is to create a one-stop shop where people can come as a visitor, know what's on offer, and know where they can walk. Now, as you'll be aware, obviously there are various promoted routes at Cwmcarn, but we want to add to that suite of promoted routes over the next couple of years. So this is going to be a couple of stages. So we're going to create panels which will show what the existing routes are, promoted routes, and then as new promoted routes come onto the kind of horizon, then we can update those panels to incorporate those as well. So yeah, I think pretty much that sums up my walking trails aspect of my current work, and I'm happy to answer any questions if you've got any.
Thanks, Gemini.
Check. Can I just pick? Can I just finish off with Gemini's comments there? I would like the group to kind of keep an eye on the work that Gemini's doing, and it's very focused within Cwmcarn. However, if as a local access forum you think that work has been valuable and useful for you, you know, Gemini's project is standalone. It's just about Cwmcarn. we did not have the resources in the team to go into that level of detail in our other 104 woodland blocks. If you feel the type of work that Gemini's doing is really valuable to you as a LAF, then as a group and feed it into your chair, feed that into the national discussion with NRW, that there's been a project where an officer was focused on delivering some improvements in an area, and you'd like to see that replicated. Because if nobody asks us, it's not going to happen anywhere else, if you can kind of see where I'm going with that.
Thanks, Bob. Questions? I see Maggie.
I just want to say, I think the work that's been done has been absolutely amazing. I am looking forward to having the no cycling signs on the footpaths. I know that a footpath sign should suggest that it's only, for walkers, but it appears that not everyone understands that. But my comment is, it's been wonderful work. I am more than happy to suggest that we ask Phil to spread the word in the National Access Forum.
Okay, thanks. I'm sure Phil would be more than happy to.
Yes, I'll raise that at the meeting in the fortnight's time, Chair.
And I'd like to jump in on there as well, Maggie. I totally agree with what you're saying, Maggie. And we've worked with Andy Fleming's team in the Rights of Way department to look at improving the footpath signage now. So they have now, I think you might already have them if you've got, Andy, they're either on order or they're just about to be delivered. Footpath signage that has who's allowed to use it and who's not allowed to use it. Oh, there you go. Brilliant. Perfect, Stefan. Thank you very much. And so you can see in there, you've got what it is, the footpath on the left, the bridleway and the restricted bridleway on the right-hand side, who can use it and who shouldn't be using it. And really important for us as land managers is there's the right-of-way reference number. So if you look at the one on the left, the sticker's been applied to the back of it. And where that's really good is when you see a tree down or you see a motorbike or a mountain biker on your footpath, you can let us know. And quite often in the past, it's took us a long time to work out which right of way you're talking about. And that's not your fault. It's because in the past you didn't know. You might do as local access forum members, but the general user doesn't. Whereas now you will know you're on Cross Keys footpath 127. And that for us makes identifying where you've got an issue really easy. And you can see at the bottom there, nothing's changed about the legal status of this signage. It's Caerphilly's responsibility to put it up and to put it on. However, as the landowner, we see this as a partnership. We're working quite closely with Andy's team about putting the posts in, about where they go and supplying some stuff as well. And this is part of a pilot that we're only doing in Cumcarn because we just don't have the resources to widen this across the estate. But like I've just said, what we would like to do is sit down at the end of it and go, what went well from our perspective, talk to Andy's team and go, what went well, what can we improve, how did that work for you? But also get feedback from users and the local access forum about, what do you like about this? What's the good things? What can we do better? How do you see it do differently? And I think the other thing, going back to your question, your comments, Maggie, sorry, and I'm very aware that in Cumcarn, people are fed up with mountain bikers and cyclists using the footpaths, and they've always felt a little bit afraid to challenge them because there's not been any signage there. Whereas now they will have ridden past this sign. And so, if those users should have a little bit more confidence of going, you shouldn't be here. This isn't for you. You have no right to be here. There's plenty of permissive routes there for the cyclists to use. And this will give us a little bit more backbone to kind of challenge that on a more credible way. However, it comes with the downside of within Cumcarn, we're having to restrict some of those rights of way to stop cyclists using them. Now, I see that as a temporary measure. And again, we're working with Andy's team about the least intrusive way of doing that. But in some cases, we're having to take physical measures to try and stop cyclists using footpaths in certain places. So, like I say, a big program of work being very well carried out, Jem, and very detailed. But if you'd like to see it widened out, then it needs some support on a wider value. I'll stop there. Thank you, Chair.
Could I, sorry, could I just add to that, if that's all right?
Please do, Jane.
So it's kind of picking up really on what Bob was talking about earlier about reporting things to the police. Now, obviously, you know, reporting to the police about incidents on the Welsh Government Woodland estate or on, you know, public land is really important, not only so that police can actually build a picture of what's happening where, but unless the police have that detail that there are issues happening, they can never gather the evidence to submit to Welsh Government for funding for future resources. So the police base all their, or a lot of their resourcing on figures. Okay, so every time a phone call comes in and a location is identified, and that is then recorded on their database of incidents, and then that feeds into those figures that they submit. And, you know, they can then get extra officers, extra PCSOs, whatever they need, you know. And really, I suppose, you know, what Bob is also saying with regards to the right of way programme that we're doing at Cwmcarn. Yeah, if you feel that it is going well and, you know, it is something you'd like to see replicated elsewhere, then feeding that information in is an important part of that process, you know. So that's all I wanted to say, really.
Okay, Germany. Thanks, Germany. June. But
just going back to the illegal off-roading issue, we've had a lot of problems up here where I live with this issue. And one thing that's come out of it, it's extremely important that when reporting to the police, that you get a log number. Because what we found was if you don't get a log number, well, we were being told this actually by the police, if you don't get a log number, it can sometimes get lost in a generic antisocial behaviour report and doesn't necessarily relate back to a specific area, which, as you both NRW guys have said, is so important. So it's very, very important to get a log number.
okay, well, thanks for that. I'm sure we'll all take that message on board. Just referring back to Germany's problem, I think there was an article in our local newspaper, the Caerphilly Observer, about off-roading in the Gwynedd Valley just in the past few days. Having walked up there, well, having lived up there for part of my life, I found it's a beautiful valley, which obviously is being decimated by the actions of just a few. But anyway, that's anybody got any other points? I see Alex Wilson. You want to comment?
Yeah, just about the recording crimes. The 101 number can sometimes be a bit tricky to get through to, but you can contact the police via social media as well, and they can help. It may get a response, or it's logged at least on those platforms.
Okay, thank you for that. If there's no further comments or questions, perhaps we'll move on to number 10, priority orders. I think we need a specialist to chat about that. Have you got anything to add to that, Phil?
Yes, Chair. Sorry, just a bit slow on getting it to come up here. We've had a request in that this item be deferred to the next meeting, which I think the Chair and I are agreeable to. Frankly, you know, Maggie wants to have a report on this matter herself and some detail on that. So I need a couple of points of clarity, really, from my point of view. But in terms of how we'll play today, we've agreed to defer the item until the next meeting. However, I have asked Stefan just to say a couple of minutes, literally, on providing a little bit of background to it, so the forum know the sort of context of what's going on with this. So we've agreed to a deferral for the main item on that. My question, perhaps, to Maggie when she's here is, I'm assuming that you want to present, be the agenda item and present this your paper. Is that right?
Yeah. Yes. I would like clarification about how. When I should send in a supporting document so that members of the LAF can read it before the meeting.
Right. So there are two issues here. In terms of supporting documentation, we needed, by and large, we needed at least a week beforehand because it goes out with the agenda and the like for that. But with regard to this specific item, apologies if I'm reading this wrong. Are you wanting, you asked for the report, and are you wanting to do the report yourself? You become the agenda item, so to speak. You present the report, and then officers respond to it.
Yes. Yes.
Yeah, okay. That's fine. As long as to clarity, then we'll put you down as you be the officer to present the person to present the report at the next meeting. That's why I just wanted clarity on that.
Thank you.
Effectively, Chair, that item is deferred, apart from a couple of minutes now for Stefan to sort of give a little bit of background to where the section is on that.
Okay, thanks, Phil. Stefan?
Good morning, Chair and members of the LAF. It might be considerably less than a couple of minutes, to be honest, but just to give you a bit of a broad brush approach to the sort of matters that we deal with as a department, as well as you may well be aware of the sort of the day-to-day inquiries with regards to maintenance and fallen trees, for example. We also have a number of legal processes that we deal with and fulfill. Some of you will probably be more familiar with those than others. We have applications under the Wildlife and Countryside Act to add public rights of way to the definitive map. We have public path orders whereby existing recorded rights of way are amended by either their alignment or removed from the map and under a different piece of legislation. And there's also addition or creation of paths where new paths are created. Just a quick background with regards to sort of the figures that we've got with regards to definitive map modification orders. So this is done under the Wildlife and Countryside Act. At the moment, we've got, and this was just a quick figure that I got from our spreadsheet, was 98 open cases. 95 cases have been closed in the past, which are ones that have been either completed or withdrawn or insufficient evidence or no actual application attached to those. With regards to public path orders, so this is applications for diversions of paths. We've got 14 open cases at the moment that we're looking at. And as it stands with creations, we don't have anything on the books that I'm aware of. That's it from me. So if there's any questions.
Thanks, Stefan. Does anybody have any questions?
Can I just ask about, I'm confused about the difference between add a path and a creation. I know I ought to know, but I really don't.
That's okay. Well, effectively, they're the same thing. They have the same end result, but the distinct difference is the legislation that they're carried out with. With a creation order, is section 25 or 26 of the Highways Act 1980, whereby we enter a creation agreement with a landowner who dedicates the way as a public right of way. With regards to, if you like, the definitive map modification orders, this is where generally users will come to us with evidence saying that they've used the route, they believe they have the legal right to use it as a public right of way. But it's not recorded on the definitive map, so they wish it to be added. So that goes under the Wildlife and Countryside Act 1981 under section 53, whereby the definitive map is seen to be in need of amendment by adding a path to it.
Thank you.
Okay. Right, thank you very much indeed. And thank you, people, for your contributions there. Number 11, Transport for Wales level crossings. Anybody speaking on?
That will be me again, Chair, Stefan Denbury.
Okay.
Just a quick update to the LAF with regards to this. I've been in contact with a consultant working on behalf of Amy Infrastructure, who in turn are working on behalf of Transport for Wales. Just to give you a quick update, if you haven't had this before or don't remember, Transport for Wales are electrifying the Cardiff to Rumney rail line, which comes through Caerphilly. In doing so, they will be obviously altering the rolling stock, that is the trains that they're using, to be electric rather than the present diesel. These trains will be faster in speed, obviously quieter in that they don't have engines, and they're also proposed to be a more frequent service along that line. Now, we have a number of level crossings for public footpaths that cross the line, and these have been flagged up by Transport for Wales as posing risk to the public as they stand, and with the increased frequency, speed and reduced noise of the trains, they believe that the risk posed to the public using those crossings will be increased, and presumably they're suggesting increase beyond an acceptable level. They therefore wish to deal with the level crossings to mitigate the risk. We've got 5 sites which we've identified with Transport for Wales. I've just got the sheet in front of me, but basically we've got, as I said, 5 sites. We've got footpath 4 Van, which is Wernthie level crossing. As it stands, there is a road bridge a few hundred meters away, which Transport for Wales seem to be leaning towards as an alternative. We have had some opposition to that internally with our highways team, given the classification of the road, but we haven't had as yet anything firm in detail from Transport for Wales and what they wish to do with any of the sites, actually. The second site then is footpath 46 Llanbradach. This is one that Transport for Wales were not aware of. It's not actually a level crossing, in that historically it was on an elevated tramway. That tramway was demolished several decades ago, it would seem, in part of the closure of the colliery, and therefore we've got an issue with a right-of-way that would be obstructed at the moment, but basically the structure that carried it has gone, so we need to investigate that and take that forward as to how we resolve the matter. Footpath 43 in Caerphilly, which is T-Isaf crossing. It's very similar to Wernthie crossing, actually, with the exception that there's not a reasonable alternative within a close distance. An overbridge, a footbridge, for example, might be a resolution in this circumstance, but unfortunately Transport for Wales have not identified any money to deal with such infrastructure, but that's something to be worked out in the future. But again, we haven't received anything firm with regards to a path order application as yet. Footpath 11 Caerphilly Gare, which is Gibbons Crossing. This is a little bit of an awkward one, in that the public right of way recorded on the definitive map stops at the railway and starts again the other side of the railway, and the statement actually refers to it not crossing the line. So again, this is something that we're going to have to investigate and go forward as to how best to deal with this. Transport for Wales are not going to be dedicating the level crossing across the line as it stands. I think they feel that they're on firm ground, that there isn't a right of way across the level crossing, and therefore they don't need to actually reopen it for public use. And footpath 88 Caerphilly Gare, this path on the definitive maps again stops at the side of the railway. The statement infers that it continues into Rumney, so there's a bit of a disparity between the statement and the map. What Transport for Wales, again, not in writing, have proposed as yet, there is an alternative route to the north of Rumney Station, which is currently used by the public but is not a recorded public right of way. Transport for Wales have suggested that they would consider allowing use to cross the line north of the station, because that is not frequently used by the trains. It's only used at night when the trains are put in the sidings, and again in the morning when they're brought out. So it's a low use line, and I think this is what they've sort of inferred through their consultant, is they may well be prepared to divert the path onto that route if that's considered acceptable. But these are things that will be looked at once we receive confirmation from Transport for Wales as to how they wish to progress with each site. And I think it was alluded to that we're looking potentially to actually go out on site and look at all these with yourselves during the next meeting. That's it from me.
Okay, thanks, Stefan. Number 12, Oh, sorry, were there any questions, or did I have any points from those? Presumably, I think they've covered it in full. Number 12, cycling on footpaths.
Chair, if I can come in here, we've invited our engineer to come and give a discussion on this one. So I think Jason Horde is here from that department to cover that element. I would hope, albeit at late notice, a paper that Maggie's has prepared has been sent out. So there's a remiss on my side, a misunderstanding what time that paper went out. But there's some background information there. Of course, the purpose of the LAF is to talk about strategic issues rather than site specifics. However, in this case, I think it does probably do good to be able to demonstrate a specific route of where a specific problem is occurring by way of demonstration, as it is an issue elsewhere in the county borough. So, in my discussions with Jason over this, I think he's going to be covering both elements, the sort of strategic element and some points with regard to the specific of this site. So I'm hoping Jason's here. I know he was popping in earlier on. Can you confirm your attendance, please, Jason?
Yep, I'm here.
Excellent. Am I right to hand over to you?
Yeah, that's fine.
Jason, the floor is yours, or the screen is yours.
So my name's Jason Horde. Act as the active travel officer for Caerphilly. I thought I'd just sort of give some overview point of active travel. So active travel, as probably people are aware, are walking and cycling journeys that are not leisure. So these are like going to the shops or going to education or going to your employment and that sort of thing. So not sort of the top of mountains and that sort of thing. So active travel has sort of been gaining momentum, as people are aware. So in policy, it's a good sustainable transport, and it's something that Caerphilly are promoting, and it's definitely something that Welsh Government are promoting as well. So in sort of regards to some active travel routes, to give you a bit of background, trying to encourage cyclists, the best active travel routes are traffic free. So unconfident cyclists, older people and women have a much greater preference for cycling on traffic free routes and will divert their journeys to take advantage of what infrastructure there is instead of cycling on the road. So traffic free routes are what is the sort of gold standard of active travel route, and so at any point we're not trying to deny access to these routes. So where it comes to, I don't know if people have read through the specific routes that we're looking at. They're sort of in the Cross Keys area, and they're two short routes that connect into the towpath, which is what is defined as an active travel route. I think it's currently closed because it's under some maintenance works on the canal, so you can't actually cycle on it at the moment, but it is a very good route. Yeah, so for those routes, I think in a letter that I expressed to Maggie that the two routes at the moment have got steps. There is signage on those routes that direct people towards the active travel route of the canal. I think the routes are constrained, and the two routes are never going to be to meet active travel standards, but we're not looking really to deny access to any route. That's specifically in this case and across the network. Any sort of barrier restricting cyclists or pedestrians is not going to affect people trying to get bikes through, because you can legitimately push a bike along a footpath, and people are wanting to go to the active travel route. So trying to make it more difficult to do that is going to be is not going to be good for people trying to do that, and also it's going to deny access with people with mobility issues using mobility aids. So it's sort of it's from an active travel point of view, we're looking at trying to keep as many routes open as possible, really. So I think that sort of covers a sort of a strategic active travel. I don't know if we should go. I can go into a map and show what routes we're looking at, or I don't know. I'm not sure what's best.
Is that quickly accessible, Jason?
Yeah.
I think that would be useful, Jace.
So these are the two routes that we're looking at. And again, they're sort of near the Cross Keys train station, and they go from Charlton Terrace. There's one route that goes from Charlton Terrace, and another one that, if I zoom in a little bit, got in a bit. So there is a bridge over the railway line, and I think I will use the photos that are actually here. This is one of the footpaths. It goes from Charlton Terrace. So from that route is that one. Oh. And this is going, I think it's on the other side. I haven't actually visited the site, so I'm using my sort of best knowledge of what they are. Yeah, so those are the two routes that we're looking at. And so this is the canal towpath. This is a designated active travel route. So we're trying to not deny people going from, Cross Keys wanting to get onto the towpath. Although from the photographs you can see they are quite constrained. The route is constrained. We're not looking at measures to deny people access along there. Mostly you can have A-frames and K-frames, which restrict people's ability to get mopeds and motorcyclists through. But there's no barrier that is not going to prevent people with like push chairs and stuff. So it's very difficult to achieve denying cyclists along this path. And also there are the steps, so any cyclist using this path is going to have to carry their bike up and over. Anyway, does that help on what problem we're looking at?
Yep. I think so. Jace, do you want to take questions at this point?
Yeah, yes, I would. I'm not surprised that you haven't been there. You calmly say that cyclists will get off their bike to go down the steps. I think Bob will back me up when I assert that many bikers love steps. They also use the steps going down from Carlton Terrace down to the main road. The reason that the steps were in that condition before they have recently been repaired, renovated, a really good job, is because cyclists have gone down these steps at speed. Whilst you are talking about you don't want to deny access to cyclists, you are putting walkers in danger. They come down the steps at speed. Is it the 1773? It isn't wide enough for walkers and cyclists to pass, and cyclists are coming down there at speed, despite the fact it's narrow. and despite the fact there is a bit of a bend in there. Right. I've brought these two up, but I am really, really concerned that the local authority is giving permissive access to cyclists on footpaths without any consultation. In your letter to me, you claim that the footpaths are needed for cyclists to gain access to NCR 147. That isn't the case. As I say, and the lack of consultation. I live in Carlton Terrace, and it's not just the people in Carlton Terrace, it's local walkers are up in arms about the fact that they feel in danger at cyclists using these two footpaths, and they're not necessary for the cyclists. They don't get off their bikes and walk along these. They don't. They ride on them at speed. They are necessary for walkers in active travel. Active travel isn't only about cyclists, it's about walkers. Students at Coleg Gwent use at least one of these footpaths to get to college and to get home. Lots of elderly people use them for dog walking to get access onto the towpath. And I know that's a leisure thing, but of course it is a public footpath. And there are people who use it, say, to walk down to Tesco's, get a bit of shopping, catch the bus back. We are being bullied by cyclists on these two footpaths. And I would like you to reconsider this permissive access. And if you are minded to carry on with it, it would be really nice if you would do a consultation with the local people. Thank you.
Okay, thanks, Maggie. Is there anybody else further, or does it need a reply, Jason? Or does Phil want to comment?
If Jason's finished his report, I will come in and say something at the end of it. But I see Nigel's got his hand up, so he can go first.
Nigel, screen's yours.
I presume it's Nigel Yates and not Nigel George.
It's not. Too many Nigels.
Yeah.
Yeah. What I was going to say is,
sorry.
I really hope they do ban these scooters, because if you've got problems with bicycles, we'll have an enormous problem with scooters if they make them legal, which I hope they won't. Thank you.
Okay, thanks for that point. Phil, I think I
didn't have the other Nigel at the time with his hand up, but Councilor had his hand up as well.
Anybody else want to have a say there?
I think it's the other Nigel now, is that?
That's right, Nigel.
Nigel.
Thank you, Maggie. The problem I got with it is, as you know, I'm local to the area and all, and I know both the paths and the other paths around there. But from a sort of council point of view, if we ban bikes off there, how would you suggest we police it? Because I'm having problems with it all the time. You know, there's bikes going everywhere at the moment, and we simply can't police the situation. So have you got any ideas how we ought to be policing it? I'd be interested to find out. Thank you.
Can I just say that just because the police in some parts of the country, there aren't enough police to police knife crime properly, it doesn't mean that you legalise knife crime. I'm sorry, just because it can't be policed doesn't mean that we shouldn't do something about this. I would imagine that the local authority has a legal responsibility to ensure that walkers are safe on a public footpath. they aren't safe. And it's no good saying there hasn't been an accident yet. Lots of cars go through red lights at Cross Keys. I don't believe there's been an accident yet, but nevertheless, we wouldn't change the law to say, oh, well, there hasn't been an accident, so we let them go through red lights.
Can I come back on that, please? No, what I'm saying, Mag, I think you're missing the point, really. I'm looking from a practical point of view. If I tell my officers, right, we're banning bikes off there, put up signs and what have you, that's not going to stop the bikes still going down over there. That's where I'm coming from.
And that's why I have, for a number of years, been asking that there is some sort of chicane at the top of the steps. Jason says that this would stop disabled vehicles. Disabled vehicles can't come down those steps. I've spoken to, when I'm out walking, I know it's cheeky, but I've stopped people in disabled vehicles and said, do you ever go along the towpath? Yes. Would you come down those steps? No. If he thinks disabled vehicles can come down there, I would like him to say what type of disabled vehicle would come down there.
No, I quite agree with you, Maggie. There's no disabled vehicles will come down over there.
To clarify, I never said disabled vehicles. I said people with mobility issues, so that can be walking aids or similar, or prams.
Right.
I've used that footpath with a pushchair, and with certain types of are they K? I know Andy Powell gave us a presentation on some of these chicanes once, and yes, would be able to get through with a single pushchair. I doubt anyone would try and get up or down those steps with a double pushchair. You do need to visit there and have a look.
Okay, thanks, Maggie. I think we've wanted to we could be exploring that issue for quite some time. So perhaps I think, as I say, it's been passed over as a deferred to the next part of the priority orders, deferred to the next meeting. We'll have another opportunity to have a chat about it, right, Phil?
I was only going to say, have you finished what you were going to say, Jace?
Yeah, that's fine.
Yeah, fine. Just a couple of things that I would add that have been going on in the background, perhaps to this, that and it is kind of in the context of the wider issue. I think we're agreed we will be having a look at sort of the rationalisation of where some of this signage has come up from, as whether it's misleading or not, whether cyclists think they have a right to cycle down places where they don't. But on the bigger picture that you were asking about, Maggie, on the active travel plan, there's about 400 routes in the county borough that are being looked at. Not all routes. I think Jason's made clear that this isn't an active travel route that he's looking at, because we just know that he wouldn't be able to meet the criteria. But please be assured that so my engineering colleagues, as part of the development of the active travel plan, which is going on now for the next 5 years, and they're setting out their priorities, there will be consultation and engagement as part of that process. I think it's fair to say, Jason, unless it's
yeah, that's right. And sort of going off what you were saying, there is obviously difficulties across the network and access rights, and there's something that we are looking at and trying to make. We're going to be looking at taking advice from Sustrans on how people do share the network considerately, because as a cyclist myself, there's a lot of respect for cyclists there, and it's just trying to it's the same with all places. I think it's the minority which spoils it, really.
Okay, thanks, Jason.
Can I just say then that...
Very briefly, Maggie, please, very briefly. Go on, the floor is yours.
That is there going to be a rethinking of these two particular routes? And are you going to consult? And it doesn't matter whether it's a minority of cyclists. Quite large groups of cyclists use these, they come down there together, and it's dangerous. So is there going to be a consultation on these two routes?
I think we were going to review the signage. I'm not sure on the consultation. That's something to be decided, I think.
Right. Thanks, Jason. I think we'll draw this one to a close. Are you happy with that, Phil?
Yes, Chair. I don't think there's much more we can add in terms of the specifics of the individual routes. As Jason said, they're being looked into at the moment. And again, I think there's a context of some background correspondence going on this as well. So,
yeah. Okay, number 13, grants. I know we know how important that is. Phil?
Yeah, that's me, Chair. Yeah, I'm just going to paperwork back up on this one. Important, maybe. I'm afraid there's not a huge amount again. This will have to report in terms of ongoing grant development. We're kind of spending what we've got, which is effectively the sort of. I gave a brief outline of the access sort of works on the GGGP, the Greater Gwent partnership. There's capital grants associated with that for doing access improvements, as well as the staff that I outlined had been employed for that. So that's ongoing. So it's going to be active for the next 18 months, that grant. We're also beavering away quite hard up on money of mine, above Cumcarn, Tumbarton, with our colleagues over in Torvine about improving access up there. So if you see plant and machinery up there at the moment, that's probably the various access improvements taking place. We've also, on the sort of wider uplands, we're coming to the end of our upland funding. So there might be some, I don't know the specifics, but there may be some upland access improvements taking place as part of that. But that funding stream will be coming to an end fairly shortly. I do have a meeting coming up with Welsh Government regarding commons and access being blocked, more to the point, on Monday. So it's not only a case of where my staff are being involved in creating and improving access, which is the bit of it we like, but we also do have quite a significant reactionary role in trying to put right damage and other things which have been going on various upland. Well, I refer specifically to the uplands because that's the meeting that I have, but it goes across the board. So there is sort of reactionary works going on as well. In terms of, as I've mentioned before, the rural development programme, there's another round of funding coming in for that. There's a call for funding coming shortly on that. Access is eligible. This comes in from sort of private sector bodies, people with an interest in access on that. So there is the opportunity for anybody who's got projects involving access, including people around on this panel, to bid in for funding from that. I'm hoping to utilise some of that funding in the future. It's not guaranteed. Utilise some of that funding in the future to actually continue the Caerphilly landscape project and some of the projects which have come out from that, because that is very access driven. I think it's fair to say, and that's sort of the area from Caerphilly east, effectively, running up to the ridge lines above Bedwas. Andy mentioned earlier on about a sort of annual grant that comes in from Welsh Government. We haven't had figures come in through for that yet, but we're anticipating that coming through fairly shortly, which is a sort of dedicated access grant, ring fence grant, that one. But in terms of new and specific grant applications being put in, there's not many openings out there at the moment, and we're kind of concentrating on spending that money that we've already got secured. So I don't think there's a great deal I can say other than grants at the moment is a bit of a hiatus at the minute.
Okay, thanks, Phil. Number 14.
So I've got Rob's coming in with a queue.
Yes, sorry. Very quickly, Phil. We're working really closely, and I think almost in a really good way at a local level on the ground with officers. I think it'll be really interesting conversation for you to catch up with Peter Cloak about, you know, we're talking about the Caerphilly landscape project where, you know, you're driving the project and trying to find the funding. I'm sure there's some sort of better partnership way where NRW and yourselves can work on that project going forwards. But I think you need to have a chat with Pete about that, how that works. You know, we're doing things on the ground that you know are going to help the project, but and with the approval of our line managers and Peter's manager, but we could do with a much bigger kind of closer tie up with that, and I think we could achieve a lot more cohesively with it if you have a quick chat with Pete maybe and discuss that going forwards.
Yeah, I'll put that onto my agenda. I've always found Pete really, you know, accommodating and easy to work with, and I was very reassured. I know my boots ain't on the ground, so to speak, very much anymore, but I was really reassured to say how you were picking up on the projects the community were putting through the Caerphilly landscape strategy. That's the whole purpose of what this is about.
Yeah, cool. Thank you.
Okay, thanks, Phil. So number 14, so what we'd all like is a challenge walk.
But possibly not at 4:30 in the morning, Chair. But there we are. This is a very quick update on this. I tend to put this on every agenda meeting. It's the 10th challenge walk. This the 10th anniversary challenge walk this year. As you will know, that it's in the it's on the 7th of May this year. It's the Tumbarton Walk. Just to let you know, the bookings are open for that. The route checks are currently taking place to make sure the paths are all passable. I've signed off T-shirts and refreshments orders, so it's definitely all systems go on that. So again, there's liaison going on now between our officers, NRW to get consents from there and informing the landowners of the day of the route, and it's going to be coming over their land in some cases. We do as a matter of good practice, really, to just keep things sweet, because we have had some issues in the past. So diary, please, 7th of May. I know some people on the group here actively help out and are probably saying, Phil, 4:30, I'm up at 3 o'clock on this one, but it's our big walk for the year, and we like it, like it to be well supported, and certainly the number of volunteers coming to help on the day is very impressive. So thanks to those.
Thanks, Phil. Move on now to number 15, meetings for the next meeting arrangements. I think it has been talked of or touched on previously.
Lost my paperwork on this one.
I think it's touched on briefly earlier, wasn't it?
Yes, it was an update on how we're going to meet. I discussed it briefly at the last meeting and said, well, we'll have this meeting remotely. The actual legislation doesn't really allow us to meet remotely, and of course it was due to wider government legislation that we couldn't meet in person, and hence we've been meeting virtually for the past 2 years effectively, isn't it? That's all coming to an end now. So there was a feeling from some people on the panel here that they would prefer to continue to meet remotely. I've passed that message on to NRW. However, please be aware that it may be a case that come the June meeting, it could be an in-person meeting anyway, but we'll just have to see where the legislation is. But the direction of travel on this again is to revert to the old systems, that LAFs have to be held in person. I haven't got anything much else I can say on that, because we haven't been informed what decision's been taken on it.
Thanks, Phil. We'll all be watching our emails accordingly. Can
I give you again kind of it's not an off the record statement because it's been recorded. From my understanding, there's been several LAFs feedback that there's a need for both face-to-face and online, and I think NRW is asking Welsh Government for the option for the LAFs to choose, so they can do both. So I think what might seem reasonable to all of us is that there has to be at least one face-to-face every year, and that other ones may be allowed to be virtual if the LAF chair and committee feel that that's the right thing to do. Again, not written in stone, but I think that's what I've heard as being useful stuff that's going on in the background.
Okay.
Yeah, that is useful to know, Rob, but it's quite logical, really, to my mind. I don't know whether really then, Chair, in this matter, as things are so live on it at the moment, whether we don't take a formal vote at this stage to see what the feelings of this group is, of whether they would rather meet remotely or meet in person, or as Rob said, it could actually be a hybrid. I don't know how how the four feel about that. Do you want to put this to the vote to see how you want it, or do you want to be contacted by email when we've got some further guidance?
Possibly wait. Nigel, do you want to add a comment?
Yeah, can I suggest that if it's raining and bad weather, we have a virtual, and if it's sunny, we have a face-to-face.
Yeah.
Those were exactly my thoughts. I thought if it's a nice day, we'd certainly want to be out and about. But if we had yesterday's weather, we'd want a virtual meeting.
Unfortunately, my herd of cattle that I used in the field on the side to forecast the weather have been moved and replaced by horses at the moment. They're not so accurate, Nigel.
And I think on that, it more or less brings us to number 16. Any other business? I have got one item I'd like to present to the laugh. Please excuse my voice. I don't know whether it'll last to the end of the speech. Very briefly, I'm minded to introduce an item on the agenda that at each meeting, one member does a short presentation on the organisation they represent, so as to get a greater understanding between ourselves. So I thought this could be raised under any other business. We could even have perhaps a specific agenda item at a later date. I'll start the ball rolling. It's only just for a few minutes, talking about an organisation I represent. And so that we have continuity, we'll go alphabetically. Perhaps Barry, are you still with us, Barry? You could prepare a very brief resume for our next meeting, with perhaps Glyn and Keith acting as reserves. If one is not able to attend, at least we'll have somebody be able to speak about themselves. I joined the laugh because of my interest in both walking and cycling. I am a member of Sustrans and of Cycle UK, and so represent cycling. My interest is on the leisurely side of cycling, and so cycling in my everyday clothing with the occasional lycra for long day and touring trips. I like to arrive home with me, my bike and my clothes as clean and in one piece as they were when I set out. There's no downhill dares for me. I'm very fragile. My walking and cycling is all on local routes, and from home and back home in time for tea. With the cycling, my last 2 years, the bulk of my cycling has been urban, using the bike as one would use a car to the shops, chapel, rail and bus stations. Other day rides would see me following many miles of our national cycle network paths around the valleys. This all kicked off with an overnight stay at the council's camping site in Cwmcarn. Then things took off. Cycle touring. This is the way to get around. So in the past few years, I've camped across Europe as I cycled the pilgrim route from Caerphilly via France to Santiago and on to Cape Finisterre in northwest Spain. The west coast of France, both ways, up and down. Saint-Malo to the south of France, train from Rotterdam, or rather train and ferry to Rotterdam, and then on to Budapest via the Rhine, Switzerland and the Danube. The only time I took the air was to get to Switzerland, and that was to follow the Loire back to the sea. That was riding westwards. So all the journeys start and finish were by train, even after I rode to Holyhead on the Long Last Cymru, the cyclist A470 through mid-Wales. That's me. If after hearing all that, you were encouraged to get your bike out from the back of the shed and follow some, or all of my tracks, I'd be more than happy to help. If anyone is connected with other organisations, PowerPoint talks can be arranged. Please do not hesitate to contact me. Thank you very much. So that's very briefly how I'd sort of, we could have sort of just brief talks and introductions about ourselves. Has anybody else got anything else they wish to question or add under any other business? Am I put everybody on mute? Have I?
That's good. Thanks, Mike.
Okay, thanks, Phil. Is anybody got any other points they want to raise or question on anything? Looks like we're in for an early finish then. We'll be in time for lunch today. Right, I think that more or less brings the meeting to a close. I thank everybody for their contributions and for our guest speakers and members of the council staff who've given up their time. And it all remains to say now, enjoy the rest of the day, and the recording will now end. Is that right, Phil? I think I'm